episode 9 of the Business of Creativity podcast. I am here with Tucker Johnson from the co-founder of Nimdzi Insights and the host of Nimdzi Live podcast. So thank you for joining me, Tucker.
Well, thank you for having me on. I'm happy to be here. It's cool to be interviewed for a change. Normally I'm the one in your seat.
You're a busy guy, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm busy.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've sort of met, if I can call it meeting, in the digital sphere, in the digital space, and you do all the podcasting for Nimdzi Insights. So this is kind of how I've come across a lot of your content, and it always looks so it's so good. It's so sort of well produced, and you're a natural. You're very comfortable chatting in front of the camera with your mic. So it was really nice of you to join today, because I know we're going to talk about the creative process of making podcasts, especially in the context of live streaming, which is great. I'm going to pick your brains about this because I've been doing some podcasts. I am yet to do live streaming because it just scares the life out of me. So we'll see if I ever do it.
Let's get into that, because I'm tempted to say, when you say like live streaming scares you, like part of me says, and it should.
Yes.
But, like a bigger part of me says, but it shouldn't. Right? It shouldn't, but we can talk about that when we get into like the benefits of live streaming, because it's different. It's different than podcasting.
Yeah. So I know you're going to come out with all sorts of useful kind of advice and tips and behind the scenes horror stories. So
how much time you got?
Yeah. So for you then, let's kind of start this off in a kind of a broad way. For you, what kind of podcasts do you like? What kind of inspired you to do podcasting? Was there something you heard that you thought, what, I would love to do something like that? How did you get started? What's your favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast is I'm not very original here. I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts.
Right.
I know a lot of people out there know who Joe Rogan is.
Yeah.
I don't listen to him a lot now that he's at Spotify, but back when he was on YouTube and all of his stuff was on YouTube, I listened to him a lot.
Yeah.
And I also got into just a lot of other niche live streaming stuff, like on YouTube. I'm not a Twitch guy, but on YouTube I've really kind of gotten into that world. And it is a whole separate world of live streaming, because we can talk about podcasting and we can talk about live streaming, but there's a lot of overlap, but there's a lot of like cultural differences in the two worlds.
Okay. Yeah. So like, when did you start doing all of this then? How long have you been doing this?
I got started, I think my first live stream was, so here at Nimdzi Insights, I'm one of the co-founders of Nimdzi Insights. We've been around for about 4 years. We've always tried to push the envelope. We've always tried to do something new. And that's because we're a consulting company. We're a market research and consulting company, and we work with a lot of agencies in the globalization arena. And they always want to know what's new. They always want to know what's new. So to be a good consultant, we need to be out there test driving stuff for them. And some of it sticks, some of it doesn't. Do you remember Clubhouse?
Well, yes, it seemed to kind of come and go very, very quickly. I have to say I didn't jump on that particular train.
And that's okay. And you know why that's okay? Because Nimdzi did it for you. And like, this is how I see perhaps Nimdzi's role in the industry is you don't have to worry about that, about Clubhouse, because Nimdzi's going to go check it out for you. And we did. I was on Clubhouse. I was hosting a show with Liz Marcy from Translated. We were hosting a show or a room every week. And we started live streaming the room that we're in on Clubhouse, because Clubhouse, as you know, is audio only. And so being at Nimdzi, we're like, all right, we need to check this out. We need to see if this is a viable thing, so that when our clients ask us, should I be on Clubhouse, we can have an intelligent response for them. But I didn't want to just go on Clubhouse. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to stand out. So we started live streaming via YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, our Clubhouse conversations. And so not only would we have that audio component, not only would we have the component where anybody could join in the room and ask questions and join the conversation, but we would also have that live stream component on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that. So that was our real first professional foray into live streaming here at Nimdzi, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So what was it about Clubhouse that didn't really sort of gel with you?
Just didn't blow up. It just didn't blow up. It was, I mean, here's the thing about Clubhouse is there's no recordings, and the beautiful thing about Clubhouse is the frustrating thing about Clubhouse, which is there are no gatekeepers. There's no gatekeepers. An argument could be made that for each Clubhouse room, there's certain moderators and they're gatekeepers of that room, but there's nothing stopping you from going out and starting your own room, starting your own conversation. And when there's no gatekeepers, at first you would think, wow, that's great. Like anybody can have a voice, anybody is empowered. But what Clubhouse really taught me is there is a vital role to be played for the gatekeeper. What we can hope for is a benevolent gatekeeper or a critically thinking gatekeeper or something like that. But there needs to be gatekeepers, because if I go on Clubhouse and spend 4 hours on Clubhouse, I might not get any value out of that. Because I don't know what I'm getting into. I don't know what's being discussed. And the only way to find out is to stay in the room and keep listening. Where if I go to YouTube, if I go to your podcast, if I go to YouTube on your podcast, it's like, I can build a parasocial relationship with you as the host. I can build trust with you as a host. I'm like, all right, I know Lucy's going to have good guests on. I know she's going to ask good questions. And I know I can listen to a podcast for half an hour and walk away knowing something that I didn't before. I don't know that about Clubhouse, right? So Clubhouse really taught me the role of the gatekeeper in marketing and media and collaboration.
Yeah. So for you then, sort of Clubhouse, not so much. Like, so what's your sort of go-to platform for all of this then?
A go-to platform is actually LinkedIn.
Right.
It's LinkedIn, and that was very, very much came out of this, try everything, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks approach. So Clubhouse got thrown at the wall, didn't stick. Stopped investing in Clubhouse, right? But the live streaming was popular. So out of that, we decided to ditch Clubhouse and invest into learning more about how to do the live streaming and do all that, because it stuck. So we did that for a long time, and we're using a program called restream.io to multi-stream to all of our different channels. And to be honest, my original goal was to build out our YouTube channel. I wanted to get on YouTube because I personally, I love YouTube. I spend a lot of time. I love the culture of YouTube. Every social platform has its own culture. I love YouTube culture. And so my selfish thing was I wanted to be a YouTube star, right? Or I wanted Nimdzi to be a YouTube star. But we need to follow the demand. We need to follow where our customers are. And what I would notice after 32 episodes in season 1 of Nimdzi Live is all of our viewers were coming from LinkedIn. All of the engagement was coming from LinkedIn. So I said, well, if you can't beat them, join them. So now we're doubling down, and we still restream, we still multi-stream to all of our channels. But the format has changed very much, where I'll even start off each episode by saying, hey, if you're joining us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, come on over to LinkedIn, join us on LinkedIn. That's where the party's at. That's where the crowd is. Because the big value add that I've found from live streaming is similar to the value from Clubhouse, which is this democratization. Anybody can join in. Anybody can join in. There's you just join in the comments section. Right.
See, that seems really, I really like that aspect of sort of interaction, real-time interaction. I think that's why I wanted to do it. And I use StreamYard for my podcast, but I mean, which is kind of crazy, because if I'm not using the live stream element, actually, I don't need it. So I'm just like, I've got it, and I'm like, I am going to use it, because I love that idea of that kind of live interaction. I have a friend that does live stream podcasts, and yeah, I've seen, you know, she's answering questions, and people are just like, hey, you know, saying hi while she's talking and introducing themselves. It's really nice. So I kind of I kind of feel like I'm missing out with that element a little bit. And I also, you know, I read recently that sort of, you know, live streaming is really sort of popular now. So yeah, it just kind of seems fun to join that party.
It is fun. And
Yeah.
Lucy, when you're ready, let's talk. Like, talk to
That's it.
me. I
Yeah.
love geeking out about this stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people have been talking to, at one point, I need to get back to Visnya. If you're listening, I apologize. But I did a podcast with Visnya. I forget her last name, but she does, oh, I'm going to screw this up. You
We
can
can
edit
edit.
this
We
out.
can edit. Yeah. The beauty
I
of
want to say she's Latvian. I want to say it's Latvian. We don't need to edit this out. Visnya, I love you. I'm sorry, I forgot. But she has a foreign language podcast. It's not in English.
Okay, that
And
narrows it down.
and I love that. I love that there's a podcast out that it's just making it so easy for people to become influencers. I hate that word, but to become influencers. Anyone with value to add can go out
Yeah.
there and do that.
Mhm.
And it's creating all of these different niches, right?
Yes.
So when
Yeah.
I say the role of the gatekeeper is important,
Mhm.
that's not to say that the role of the gatekeeper is set in stone. It's
Mhm.
dynamic, it's changing, it evolves over time.
Mm.
And moving forward, like, we're not going, as a society, as a culture, global culture, I think that we're not going to rely so much upon, like, the typical talking heads on CNN, the nightly news and these
Mm.
stuff,
Mhm.
as more and more people are losing trust in
Yeah.
the media, the quote
Yeah.
unquote mainstream media, another loaded term I hate to use. People are seeking out their own gatekeepers that they can trust, that
Yeah.
are talking to their specific challenges. So instead of having like 5 personalities, 5 influencers in your country, in your world, that you can go to as a source of advice, a source of
Mm.
value,
Yeah.
this whole world opens up to you.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love it.
Yeah. 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 It's so true, isn't it? I mean, it's great. I mean, speaking of YouTube, you know, I used to, I really kind of got into that, trying to learn Photoshop. Obviously, these kind of aren't podcasts as such, but yeah, it's just kind of these people that you feel like you get to know, and they give you so much value, and they become so familiar, and they're just kind of guiding you through this topic, and then it does have this kind of like sense of kind of community with it, you know, and it's fantastic, isn't it? So
and I see, as a podcast host, and hey, I'm a new podcast host. I haven't been doing this for very long, right?
Yeah.
I'll say this before I go back into a story of how my original thoughts on localization podcasting, because my partner Renato Beninato, he's the podcast, like, he started one of the first podcasts in our industry, so he's
Okay.
really kind of owned that space with him and Michael Stevens with
Uh-huh.
the Globally Speaking podcast, and they're still doing a podcast today. It's called
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Global Podcast. But I forgot where I was going with this.
We need to hit the rewind button.
But yeah, so I mean, that's how I wasn't the original podcaster in here. I was a very reluctant podcaster.
Really? Gosh, I would never have thought that. Yeah.
I know. Most people think I'm an extrovert. Most people think that I love talking to people and all of this stuff. I'm not. I'm an introvert. I'm actually,
Yeah.
I'd very much rather put other people in the spotlight than myself. I'm an ops guy. My business partner is a sales guy, right?
Yeah.
Ops, sales. They love talking about themselves. They love talking about how great they are. I mean, that's a stereotype, right? Love you, salespeople. But us ops guys are usually more happy to be back in, doing the work. Like our COO at Nimdzi, Gabriel Karandisovsky, is just a wealth of information. He's a brilliant man, but he has no desire to be a celebrity.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and I respect that. My
It's
colleague
yeah.
Sarah Hickey, with her background in radio,
Yes,
also
she's
a
great.
wealth.
Yeah.
She's great too. But
Yeah,
she's the
she is.
personality where she's like, hey, let's go out there and do this, and she does a weekly thing herself on Monday,
Yeah,
live streaming.
yeah. I mean,
So
it's true, isn't it? For companies doing podcasts, finding the people that are kind of brave enough to put themselves out there. For me, it's weird because if you put me at a networking event, a real life networking event, like it's very likely that you'll find me in the corner for like kind of like half an hour or so, thinking,
yeah,
help, I don't know who to talk to. I don't want to be here.
yeah.
But you put me on in video like this, and it's, to me, it's just that I don't know. Some people be like, oh my god, I couldn't put myself on social media on video, and somehow I can do that, but the networking in real life is like, oh. So it's a funny one.
I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. So I'll tell you how my original perception of podcasting when it was presented to me is,
Yeah.
my partner Renato and Michael, they run their podcast
Mhm.
through, and they used to run it through Moravia, RWS Moravia. Well,
Mhm.
long story short, they both left Moravia, so they started
Mhm.
a new podcast called the Global
Yeah.
Podcast. And
Okay.
I remember they pulled me out to lunch,
Mhm.
and because these are two sales guys. These are two
Uh-huh.
sales guys, and they just
Uh-huh.
want to show up and talk into some microphones, and they've always had someone else produce their shit for them, right? So they take me out to lunch, and they're like, "Yeah, we need to start this podcast," and I'm just sitting here like,
Oh god.
mm. And eventually, at the end of the meal, I used explicit language, which is probably not appropriate for your family show here, but I basically told them, "No, I'm a busy man. I'm not dedicating time to your vanity project." I remember the words
Oh.
that I used. I said,
Wow.
"I am not dedicating time to your vanity project for your
Uh-huh.
egos." And that's how I felt
Ooh.
about it at the time. Now, I can say that because since then I've learned from those older and wiser than me, like Renato and Michael Stevens, that it's not a vanity project. It's not a
Mm.
vanity project. It feels like it to me,
Yeah.
like I'm being self-promotional,
Yeah.
but I'm not.
Mhm.
I'm very, very concerned about being others promotional. And I tell all of my guests that come on my
Mhm.
podcast,
Mhm.
I say I have two things
Mhm.
in this order that are requirement for my podcast. Everything else is negotiable, but those two things are: first, do we add value to our listeners? Like
Yeah.
if we're not talking about something that someone's going to get some value out of, and
Mhm.
hey, value can be teaching them something. Value can
Mm.
be being funny, being
Mm.
entertaining.
Yeah.
Value can be introducing them to someone they didn't know. Value can be
Mm.
providing them an opportunity to network with their peers in the chat section during a
Yeah,
live
yeah.
stream. But I
Yeah.
mean, value can mean many, many different
Yeah.
things. It's not
Mhm.
just, you don't need to be boring in teaching. So that's the first thing. Are we bringing value to our customers? The second thing, are my guests comfortable and are they enjoying themselves? Like,
Mm.
do they
Yeah.
want to come back? That's like my one KPI. Do guests want to come
Yeah.
back on the show?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I want people that,
Mhm.
have some value to add and
Mhm.
can have fun doing it. Because if we're not
Yeah.
having fun,
Yeah.
what's the point?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, I think with the sort of episodes that I've done for mine, I feel like for me it's great because I'm getting to speak to new people, and I'm learning from them, and I always love to hear other people's experiences. But I mean, for me, I always have this expression, chewing the fat, because like I just love to kind of pick away at things, like just go over. Basically, I spend a lot of my time thinking, or some might say overthinking. I sort of
Yep.
go over things a lot in my own head, and sometimes it's just nice to kind of have other people to kind of. I just love to sit down and just talk it through with like other people, their experiences of something similar. Sometimes it could be something like kind of living in Japan. But yeah, I kind of feel like I'm learning something from my guests. But yes, you have to keep in mind, what are people kind of getting from this. So
Well, you
yes,
bring
I
up a
think that.
good point though, about like podcasting for ourselves too. So I'll talk about myself. So podcasting, what am I getting out of it? Like, what am I learning? Am I enjoying myself? Am I having fun doing that? And I don't think it's selfish to take these things into account, because if the host isn't enjoying it, the host isn't having fun, then nobody's having fun.
Yeah.
Nobody's
I mean, this is the thing, like when you start out, you know, it's not like you've got this massive following. So,
no.
you know, it's like,
and that's the other thing. You got to do it for yourself.
yeah,
Right. When you start out, you
yeah.
can't be talking to your followers. You got to hit the live button. You got to hit the publish button and say, I'm proud of my work that I've done. And here it is. If you'd like to consume it, please do. But don't, don't watch the comments. Don't be hitting refresh. And the way that I've learned to deal with that neuroticism that I have of like publishing something and then like obsessively seeing how many likes it got and stuff.
Yeah, it's
is
crazy.
The way that I've learned to deal with that is to do more. And what I mean by that is, if I F up a live stream, which Lord knows it's happened, right? We were just talking about it before we hit record. I mean, the microphone could be bad, the camera could be bad, something's not connecting. There's so many moving parts, especially when you're doing it live. It's very unforgiving. So I have some live streams out there that are just horrible, and I've broken down in tears. Like, I've had breakdowns. This is how I used to handle when I had a bad live stream, like catatonic state. I was just so mad at myself. And my team has seen me gone through that. Nowadays, I don't care. And I'm like, we'll get it next time. We've got another one tomorrow. We'll get it.
Are you
next
a bit
time.
of a perfectionist, or is it just kind of a natural thing to be that stressed with a live stream? Is it perfectionism, or is it the nature of just putting yourself out there on a live broadcast?
I don't think it's perfectionism so much that, and now we're getting into it. Now we're getting into like
it's like
Tucker's
like a therapy
psychology,
session. It's going to be a therapy session.
I don't think it's perfectionism. I think it's I have an unreasonable, not desire, but instinct that I have to serve my different cohorts of people that I serve, whether those are Nimdzi's clients, whether those are Nimdzi's employees, whether that's, I mean, shit, my family, my whoever it may be. I have this, and I say it's unreasonable because I absolutely know it is. It's my delusional, it's my narcissism that's talking to me. But I have this idea that it's like people are depending upon me to provide a quality product, and when I fail, I'm failing them. And I take that very seriously. And what I needed to remind myself is that, Tucker, no one cares as much about you as you care about you. Right?
I know that feeling. Absolutely. It's good to talk to another a fellow podcaster, just to check in and, you know, confirm that we're not just going mad. But you know, one of the things, like talking about sort of what we get from podcasting, another thing is learning how to like interview people. I mean, not that, you know, I don't want to take it too seriously, and I'm really glad today actually that we were just like, in fact, you were kind of like, we're just going to jump on the call. We're just going to hit record. And I was like, but first, usually I like to have a call a few days before, you know, and I have to I let it percolate in my mind. I've got to give it a few days to kind of come to fruition, like the idea. It's like, nah, let's just jump on the call. So I really love that. But what, you know, something that I found kind of, I don't know, difficult or interesting, but trying to like have a conversation with someone and being conscious of like, am I creating value, while at the same time sort of like being very engaged, watching the time, like how long have we been going? Should I go on to the next question? Have we answered this question enough? Should I develop it a bit more? Should I change? Like all these things are going, and I never thought about that before I started doing it. I never considered, I guess, honestly, naively, I thought, oh, you just kind of sit on the podcast and you just talk. And then I realized that there is this interviewing, you know, these interviews that you see on TV, you know, the famous ones. It's a real craft, isn't it? And I think that also takes a lot of experience to sail smoothly, navigate your way in the most interesting way, in the most kind of value-led way through a conversation, while at the same time just looking engaged and happy.
Yeah. Putting
Does
on a
it get
show.
easier? Does it
Putting on a
get
show.
easier? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it gets easier, right? So
Mm.
I deal with all of that while being live and
Yeah.
people in comments asking questions, and I have
Ah,
a
see.
stream deck of different scene transitions and all of this stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't have a producer for my podcast. I'm doing that all
Mm.
myself. And
Yeah.
so it's a ton of moving parts. And that's what I
Yeah.
said like before, like when we were chit-chatting before we hit record here. And I'm like, let's do this, hit record.
Yeah.
Because like I'm doing so much, I'll
Yeah.
forget which questions that I've asked. Right. So if I'm
Yeah.
talking to you, if I have a pre-sync meeting with you 2 days
Mm.
before the live stream and I ask you a bunch
Mm.
of questions, in my
Mhm.
mind, I've already asked you those questions. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Mm.
so much going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of a podcast, I'll have people or a live stream, people reach out, great. Oh, that was so informative. I loved it. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting here thinking, what did I talk about?
Yeah.
Right? Like I've
Yeah. Yeah.
legitimately forgotten what it
Mm.
was that we've forgotten, what we talked about because there's so
Yeah.
many moving pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I do want to say, you mentioned it takes a lot of experience.
Mm.
And let's just talk about that for a little bit because in
Mm.
how I see it, and I need to be careful here because I don't want to discourage anybody from putting themselves out there. If they want to start
Mm.
a podcast, if they want to go live,
Yeah.
I think anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But what I've seen, what I've found is there's experience, but it takes a certain personality type,
Yes. Yeah. It's
right?
true, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's either you got it or you don't. If you
Yeah.
don't, that's cool, right? Like we're all
Yeah.
born with strengths and weaknesses. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I was born, first of all, I'm a native English speaker, so
Mm.
that provides me an unfair competitive advantage in our
Yes.
industry,
Absolutely. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I recognize my privilege on here on this,
Yeah.
right? I was
Yeah.
born a native English speaker and
Yes.
I was born with the gift of gab, right? I
Yeah.
can talk. I really can talk. And so it makes sense that I would find myself in a podcast, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Those are my assets that I was
Mm-hmm.
born with. If I
Yeah.
had different assets, I'd have an OnlyFans page. I don't know, right? But it's like you play to your strengths.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. 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 Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. Sometimes it just comes down to personality and some people it just kind of clicks into place, I guess.
My colleague Sarah is a natural. She has a
Yeah.
background in radio,
Oh,
and
right.
I
Okay.
yeah, I trained her on how to do the live streaming, and she just
Yeah.
manages it all herself. I don't do anything with her anymore, but she does last week in
Mhm.
localization every Monday
Yes.
morning here in
Yeah.
Seattle.
Yeah.
She's going live with different guests,
Yeah.
and she's got it. She's
That's
got it.
brilliant, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, but on that point, talking about sort of the process and managing the process, all this kind of thing, like for people who watch this and they're like, oh, I want to do a podcast, but, what would be sort of your like main advice for kind of just getting started, like kind of beginners podcast? Like, what do you need? What's the kind of tech? What can be the baby steps into podcasting?
Well, the first one I already kind of touched on is add value. Add value,
Yeah.
add value, add value.
Yeah.
A podcast is you got to walk the line because on the one hand, I say you should do it for yourself.
Mm.
Um, but you're not really doing it for yourself. You're creating a product to be consumed by others. So when I
Yeah.
say you do it for yourself, I don't mean, just talk about whatever you want to talk about and have do whatever you want. What I
Mm.
mean by do it for yourself is, don't do it because you feel you need to or something. Do it for the right reasons. That's what I mean
Mm.
by do it for yourself, right?
Mm.
Um, but you're doing it for your audience. So, and if your audience isn't getting value out of it,
Mm.
then what are we doing? What are we
Yeah.
doing? And
Mhm.
when I talk about this concept of adding value,
Mhm.
I, this is a life concept. This isn't a podcasting concept.
Mhm.
And God, we're getting into the psychology again. It's like I really try. I fail miserably frequently, but I really try to approach every situation that I go into, every human connection that I go into, with this mindset of what value can I bring?
Yeah.
And if I can't bring value to any given situation, then I, in forced humility, sometimes sit down and shut up and go away, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so for new podcasters out there, do it, do it for yourselves, do it for the right reasons, but make sure that your product is something that's adding value out there, and
Yeah.
it's going to make you feel a lot better too, because you know that you're putting a product out there that's actually adding value. So
Yes.
don't do a podcast just because, hey, my company needs a podcast, so we need to do this. That's the wrong reason. No one's going to listen to that podcast because no one cares, right? No one cares about your corporate podcast. And isn't that the truth, right? Like,
Yeah.
how many corporate podcasts do you listen to?
Yeah. No, it's true, isn't it? I mean,
Nimdzi, right?
well, yeah, exactly.
But let's
yeah.
face it, the Nimdzi is very much, I manage the branding. I've created the branding and everything for the Nimdzi Live, and my face is plastered all over it. And that's not it's not because I want to see my face. It's because people want to listen to people. They
Yeah,
don't want
it's
to
so
listen to
true.
brands.
It's so true. Like, yeah, I think, like, blogs in the past, sort of company blogs seem so faceless. And so I think, with video, you very much get this kind of personable feel, and it's just got personality. It's got more personality behind it. And you can relate, you can maybe find things with this person that you can relate to. So video, I think you can build rapport far
Remember when
more
podcasts
quickly.
were audio?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's like audio only. It's like, now when you say podcast, I always have to, like, what do you mean by podcast? Because it's like 90% of podcasts have a video component.
Yes, that's the thing. Like, yeah, when I thought about that in the past, I thought, oh, it could just be audio actually. But yeah, I just think, again, you're going faceless, and there's just something about somebody offering up their face, to be the face of whatever it is that you're promoting.
Authenticity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the word. Authenticity. Yeah, I think it works so much better that way. So yeah, the people who are willing to do it.
We could talk about authenticity probably for the rest of however much time that we have scheduled, because that, in a word, that is what, and I'm going to talk specifically about live streaming rather than just podcasting.
Okay.
To me, authenticity is the heart of live streaming. It's because it's just too many. You got to be. You're live. So people are going to see how you react. People are going to see how you react when things go wrong, right? And you know how I said earlier, I used to, when we'd have a bad stream, I'd end up in a fetal position, drunk for 2 weeks, or whatever, fill in your cliche.
Yeah.
And nowadays I don't, because one of the areas of value that I think I can bring, I think value is ultimately in the eyes of the people that are receiving it, right? But I think the value that I bring is showing people how to fuck up publicly. And
yeah. Yes, and then it's authenticity. People don't want to see perfect people doing perfect things. People will be forgiving because they'd rather have that human element of error. Yeah, it's true, isn't it? And also, talking about these kind of horror stories where you end up in a fetal position with a bottle of vodka, it's kind of character building, I guess,
that's one way to put it.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes, it's it's the difficult stuff, it's the uncomfortable stuff that kind of takes you up to the next level. If it were all too easy, it would get super boring. So you got to
The
do it. Got to go out there and do it.
the uncomfortable stuff. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think, and once again, this is advice for podcasters, advice for humans, is learn how to become more comfortable being uncomfortable. I think we as a society, society has too many safe spaces. I'm sorry. Like, we need some uncomfortableness, I don't know the right
Yes.
word, in our lives as a
Yeah.
society. We need to learn how to sit there, and I feel a lot of people, when presented with an uncomfortable situation or event or whatever it may be, our immediate reaction is to label that situation as bad.
Yes.
Uncomfortable equals bad.
Yeah.
And because it's bad, I can now pass judgment upon it, that I don't need to take it seriously. I don't need to deal with it. I can just remove myself from that situation, whatever it may be. But we don't deal with what makes us uncomfortable. And I think the extent to which we deal with that which makes us uncomfortable is the extent to which we can experience a certain amount of self-respect, of spiritual freedom, of happiness, of whatever it may be. The people that that we all know, that these people that you walk into a room and just everybody wants to be around them, and like, they're just a pleasure to be
The people
around.
at the networking events.
At the networking events, right? But there's some people, it's just like, when I hang out with this person, I walk away feeling better about myself, right? These people where you hang out with them and you walk away feeling better about yourself. Those people have learned how to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes. And I mean, this podcast is called The Business of Creativity, and creativity does not come from sitting in a corner doing safe stuff.
Creativity comes from crying into your bottle of vodka.
It does.
That's where creativity comes from. I mean, ask Hemingway, ask anybody, ask any of the greats, right? They all had horrible, miserable lives.
It comes from all sorts of places, though, doesn't it? It comes from pain. It comes from just being uncomfortable, like putting yourself in places that are unfamiliar. That's where it comes from, and you will never be able to innovate if you don't kind of try to kind of push the envelope a little bit, and put yourself in a new space. That's where kind of innovation and creativity comes from. So we should carry on doing it.
Well, and to a certain extent, the new podcasters, I mean, the barrier to entry is so small, right? Like, back when Renato and Michael started, globally speaking, I'm sure there were other podcasters. Catherine Bussman's been doing it. How could I not mention Catherine? Catherine Bussman's been doing it forever with The Worldly Marketer, right? There's all of these people, and I forgive me if you're listening and I haven't given credit, but there's all of these people out there that have been doing it for so long. But now anybody can do it. Anybody can do it. So a second piece of advice I would ask for people that are thinking about starting their podcast is going to be, why? Like, what's different? And this kind of ties into the adding value. It's like, are you going to do another podcast? Like, the world does not need another podcast on XYZ, right? So what's your niche? Why are you going to do it? And one way, or how are you going to differentiate, perhaps, is a better way to put that. And one way to differentiate is doing something new. Like, for me, it was, I told Renato and Michael where they could shove their podcast idea in no uncertain terms. Was not interested in doing a podcast. When Clubhouse came around, I became interested. Why? Because it was something new, right? There was a new component. And so you're adding video to your podcast. You're adding music. I just told you, I really love your music that you use.
It's funky. I love it.
It's cool. But these are value adds, right? Everything that makes the experience either easier to listen to, having a nice microphone.
Yes, I
I'm not
got.
going to listen to an hour podcast if the person's not using a nice microphone. It hurts
Yeah,
my ears.
yeah. That's the first thing I did. I went out and got a decent mic. But yeah, as for the music, yeah, I think it all comes back to sort of personality, doesn't it? I think it sets a tone. It's like, oh, it's this kind of music, it's this kind of vibe, it's this kind of feeling. But also, sort of for my podcast, like the colors, there's a certain color scheme. I've even got like the 2 fonts that I've decided on. And I think all these things, like I wanted something that becomes sort of immediately recognizable and very quickly becomes familiar, because at the end of the day, that's like in marketing, that's what you want. You want to very quickly become familiar, because people are drawn to things that are familiar. People buy things that are familiar. They buy from names that are familiar. And I think though all those small elements kind of help to build that up pretty quickly and sort of bring this feeling of kind of personality. Well, that was the plan anyway. But,
No, I mean, it's branding strategy, it's marketing
yeah,
strategy, and I absolutely agree with all of that. I mean,
yeah.
gosh, what
Yeah.
what do people think of when they see this yellow? Nimdzi, this
Yeah.
yellow right here.
Yeah,
It's
it's but you know
it's
what,
Nimdzi.
when I first kind of started to see you guys around on like kind of social media, and it did feel kind of very fresh. It was very bright. It was fun. Because our industry, if we're talking about our industry now, which is translation, localization, globalization, we're very, very niche. It's difficult for people to kind of be interested in it. And yeah, I thought it was nice, because I think you guys gave it a fresh look and made it appealing. You started to make it feel appealing. Yeah.
We have and this relates to the Nimdzi brand, but it relates to podcasting as
Yeah.
well. Is I am and Nimdzi, we're in the fortunate position of not having to give a shit what people think about us. Like,
It's always
so
good.
yeah, I don't have a boss, right? So I can swear on podcasts. I can talk about things that I want to talk about, or I think the value. I can use obnoxiously bright colors. I picked those colors for Nimdzi. I know the hex codes for all of those colors.
Yeah, I know. You start to think colors in numbers, but anyway, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. FCC 000, Nimdzi yellow, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I get all of that,
Yeah.
but I didn't have to run everything through committee. I didn't have to make sure that my podcast logo was approved by the marketing department. I didn't have to make sure. I don't have to make sure that my guests are run background checks and legal. You know what I'm saying? And so, in a way, individuals can have certain competitive advantages when starting up their podcast. Of course, they don't have the budget and all of that stuff, but I mean, you can get a free episode of Stream, or a free instance of StreamYard. It might have a watermark, but pay $20 to remove the watermark. You don't need a fancy mic. You can start without one, but that would be my first investment for new people. You can get a Canva. Canva's free. Like you mentioned that you were teaching yourself Photoshop, and I almost interrupted you to say why, because Canva does all of that stuff.
I
right?
know.
That you need.
That's a whole new episode. That is a whole new episode. I think there's some sort of stubbornness in my mind. I don't know.
I had that stubbornness. I know what you're talking about, because you want to learn the real tool, right?
Yes, maybe that's it.
You want to challenge yourself. You don't want to be
Yeah.
one of these Canva warriors. You want to be
The real deal.
I hear that. I feel that, because I was that way for a long time. I've still got Photoshop. I use it occasionally, but at the end of the day, I realize the best tool for the job is the one that gets the job done quickest. And I literally set up. I got some information for a event that I'm booking with Jonas Ryberg over at Pactera Edge. We're going to do a podcast episode together to talk about this great white paper that they're putting out. And I got the details about 20 minutes, I think, before you and I started talking. And I went to Canva, created assets, created an event, posted about it, all within 20 minutes. And never even had to open Photoshop.
Yeah. It's true, isn't it? It's true. Yeah, I'll get past that mental block on Canva. For my podcast, I use StreamYard. Then I download the video, the recording, and then I do put it into Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro also is not particularly user friendly. I'm sure there's a lot easier ways to do things.
There needs to be a Canva for Premiere Pro. What Canva did for Photoshop, somebody needs to do for Premiere Pro.
I mean, I can do sort of the basics now and do, just I can string something together and it's fine. But it's not the most user-friendly platform. So like for other people out there who thought, I kind of want to start a podcast and I'd like to kind of edit it a bit like that. I'd like to put some music in. It is a bit of it would be a bit of a learning curve with the Premiere Pro to begin with, but like StreamYard, you can kind of do branding in it. But
my advice is to stay out of Premiere Pro. Not to you, but to someone just starting out. I'm like,
I can see that.
Download, because you're going to be terrified and you're going to run away screaming.
Yes, you're going to pull your hair out. Yeah, it's
Premiere Rush, right? It's like the light version of Premiere Pro. Download Premiere Rush.
And
it'll crash every 5 minutes and make you want to throw your phone against the wall. But it's better than Premiere Pro.
I mean, because like with StreamYard, you can put branding in and some transitions. It's kind of fairly basic. The reason I didn't go with the StreamYard functions was because I just found it all a bit distracting. Like I can put in a transition here. I have to click a button and I was like, I don't want to have to do anything while I'm talking to someone and trying to kind of like lead this conversation. So I decided like, I'm not going to take advantage of the StreamYard functions. I'm just going to record and then I'm going to put it into Premiere Pro and like make it look pretty. So that's kind of why I ended up doing that, but you don't have to do that. And I totally agree that if you're not familiar with Premiere Pro, then and you're new to podcasting as well, that's just too much. So don't do it to yourself.
But it all depends on how you decide to add value. You've decided to add value by highlighting and focusing on the actual content, the audio, right? Without all of the flashy stuff on screen. You've decided to add value by going back and editing your podcasts and adding music and cutting out all of the stuff that doesn't make sense, right? That's how you're adding value. I do none of that. Right? Because how much time are you going to spend post-editing this podcast?
It takes a few hours. If I'm honest, and I've started looking for shortcuts because I'm like, I can't do this. I've got a day job, I've got kids, and I'm like, I need to find some shortcuts. This is too much. And so probably my
live streaming, it's the shortcut.
But I need to do it.
But it's not how no. I don't mean to imply that you need to do it.
I would like to do it.
You would like to, then I encourage you to do it. But you don't need to do it because you've chosen to add value through another way. And what I like about the live streaming is the expectations are different from the audience, right? They don't expect everything to be produced. If I upload a 10-minute video to YouTube, there's a certain expectation that it needs to be well produced, and it needs to have a high, what I call, value to minute ratio, right? So there needs to be a lot of value packed into 10 minutes. Live stream doesn't have that expectation. It's less formal. Now, if I was a really good marketer, I'd go to my live streams and I'd cut them up into 1 minute chunks that I could post to Instagram and all of that stuff. But I'm lazy. I'm not lazy. I'd just rather prioritize setting up the next podcast.
It's all about priorities, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't do it all. So pick the bits that work best for you or your audience. Absolutely, I totally agree. But I think we talked about sort of what we get from podcasting, and I said, I've met some really nice people and I've kind of learned from them, and but yeah, along the way you learn all these new skills as well, and I found that really great too. Sometimes I will bemoan the technical problems, but like one time I recorded an entire podcast. The podcast mic wasn't on, it was going through this mic that was up here, and I recorded the whole thing, really enjoyed the episode, and discovered, oh my God, the sound is awful. So what did I do? I had to go into Premiere Pro, and I had to work out, Premiere Pro and Adobe Audition, and how to remove background noise, because the hissing sound was terrible. And in the end it wasn't great, but I removed the background noise, just improved it as much as I could. And I was like, it's kind of cool that while doing this podcasting, I meet nice people, I kind of learn some new stuff, I have meaningful conversations, and I've learned a few skills along the way, technical skills along the way. So it's a very kind of positive experience. Not right at the time.
No, not right at the time.
Because you cry in a fetal position when you want a vodka. But then after that part.
But I don't do that anymore because of my liver, but also because it's like, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
It's what can I learn from this, and then I make improvements. And I've actually trained my brain to love screwing up.
Yeah, that's
even
a brilliant
in public.
skill. Yeah,
because every time I screw up, a change gets made. Right.
Yeah.
So after I recorded this one, because there's so much to learn. There's so much to learn that you wouldn't know. So it's like, I remember poor Oscar Kuros, I believe, was my guest, who's just a fascinating person. We had a fascinating conversation about language, life, a bunch of different stuff. And there was just this clicking noise in the audio that made it very difficult for someone like me to listen to. Perhaps other people can tolerate it. Well, it's because I had my phone next to the microphone cord.
Okay.
It was like an inch away from the microphone cord. That was didn't know that. Do better next time.
Yes,
right? Another time a stream gets cut off in the middle because my internet goes out for half of a second. So it splits up the streams, and we lose half of our people because they don't come back that are watching. All right. Well, now I have something called Speedify, which merges. I've got 2 internet connections, and I've merged them for redundancy. Right.
Wow.
But every time I screw up, it's like, okay, what's the solution for this? And it's like, that which does not kill me makes me stronger.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's fantastic. Well, we're coming up towards for an hour now. So, but I have to say, like, it's been so much fun, like, talking with you. And I can see that we've got like some very similar ways of thinking. And I do feel like quite inspired now to just to try this live stream episode.
Well, you were talking about doing a live stream for like to celebrate your 10th episode with a bunch of your past guests, right?
Yes, that's what I was thinking. Like, my first goal was to get to 10 episodes, and then I thought, I'll get to 10 episodes, and then I'm going to evaluate it all, because I always said in the beginning,
smart.
Yeah, it needs time to breathe.
Yes.
It needs time to work out what it is. So I said I would give myself 10 episodes. And also what I realized is, at the beginning, there's like different phases. And at the beginning is the novelty phase, or the honeymoon period, where all your friends and all your colleagues are like, oh my God, you've made a podcast. That's amazing. Well done. And you're like, oh my God, I've got 50 likes. I'm so popular. And you think like, wow, I'm really good at this. This is going to be great. And then the novelty period wears away, and your friends don't want to keep saying, congratulations, you made a 4th podcast episode. So then you go down to like 5 likes. And then comes the embarrassment period. And in the embarrassment period, you have to decide, am I going to put myself out here for very little, engagement? I kind of look like I'm out there putting myself on a pedestal with very little engagement. Am I going to put myself out there like that and embarrass myself for a little while in the hope that things improve? But I think a lot of people quit at that point, because it's not very nice to kind of put something out there and you've had your 50 likes and now you're on to 4. And so I thought, I'll give it 10. and then I'll kind of move through these phases, and I'll evaluate it. I'll see I'll look, what have I done? What did I get from it? What is the value of it? And then I will decide. So
Well, and
yeah.
that's key, what you said, like, what did I get from it? And
Yeah.
this is what I'm talking about when I say you got to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can't be doing it for the likes. You can't be basing your own worth. We can't be basing our own worth. We can't be basing the worth of our podcast even. Well, perhaps you can base the worth of the podcast on it, but you can't base your own worth on how many likes you get.
Yes,
because
it's true.
That way lies challenges.
Yeah. And it's hard. It is hard because, you're on LinkedIn, for example, and you're in your home feed and you're scrolling through and you've got all these influencers, like 1,000 likes, 500 likes, however many. And then you're like, wow, I'm the only person on my feed with 5 likes. And it can really play on you. It can really, LinkedIn and social media is built that way, isn't it? It's meant to be addictive. It's supposed to kind of fuel sort of the desire for more engagement, for more clicks. That's how it's designed. And so you've got to sort of try and keep a perspective and keep working on something and give it time to see if it really works or not.
Yeah, and all of those people. So here, and perhaps this is, we're coming up on the hour. This is something, we're running out of time here, so perhaps this is something that can add value to your audience. If there's prospective marketers or podcasters out there who are thinking, man, I'm not even going to try this because I can't get, there's no way I'm going to look and sound as cool as Lucy. There's no way I'm going to get as many likes as Nimdzi, or whatever that self-doubt is, whatever those little gremlins that are whispering in your ear are saying. Go to Nimdzi Insights YouTube page. Scroll all the way down. All the way down, because we've been doing video content since day one, because since day one we wanted to be different. And nobody was 4 years ago, nobody was doing video content in our maybe a few, right? I don't want to say nobody. But scroll all the way down and watch a few of those videos. Watch a few of my videos and see the quality. Check the audio quality. Check the green screen, the shitty green screen in the back. Check all of that, and they're bad. Spoiler alerts, right? But this is what I say. This is the value that I can bring. I can fuck up in public. Because when I do that, it gives other people the permission to do that.
Yes, it's true, isn't it? Yes, it empowers other people to go fuck up, and it makes us feel better. Yeah.
There's the name. There's the title for this episode: Empowering Others to Fuck Up.
Yeah, that's catchy. I don't know if LinkedIn would let me, but
I just tried to submit a call for papers the other day with like, nobody gives a F ... about localization or something like that was the title of my presentation. They wrote back and they're like, we really like the idea, but we're not a fan of the title. I'm like, I had to try.
We're all thinking it, everybody's thinking it, but it's been absolutely like inspirational to talk to you. I know you've done so much in the area of podcasting, live streaming. I love the stuff that you've been doing. It just kind of spurs me on, and everybody, I'll when I do my editing, I'll put in some links so that everybody can check out your shows and learn from the pro how to get it done.
Lovely. And so, but I gotta ask you again, I gotta ask you on air here, you gonna come on my podcast then?
I thought you'd never ask.
I thought I did ask already. I thought
you probably did, and then I was like, he doesn't mean it.
This whole conversation started with me reaching out to you to invite you on my podcast, I think. And for some reason, here I am on your podcast.
Sneakily switched it.
Which, I'd expect no less from a good marketer like you. So kudos. it's like another, solid, practical, very simple to understand piece of advice for new podcasters. Script your intro, script your outro.
Yes.
Because I've spent 37 episodes trying to figure out how to end a goddamn live stream.